my name is Lindsey. I'm the co-founder of The Laundress. And just to give you a little background about myself, I was in fiber textile science program at Cornell.
Common theme here.
What's that?
Common theme.
Yeah, exactly. But I did a little bit of both, a little bit of design, a little bit left brain, a little bit right brain, design and business. So my background was in the sales side and product development for, I worked at Brooks Brothers, I worked at Chanel, and so that really led us into the laundress like very naturally with that regard. So talking about Gwen and I and our business experience and sort of the ideas, we had a lot of different ideas prior to starting the laundress. And actually, to even go back to when I was 10 years old, this was in the 80s. Buttons were big. I don't know, maybe they'll make a comeback. But I was selling buttons and personalizing them. And then I had a t-shirt line in the early, I guess it was late 90s, early 90s, that I sold to Henry Bendel's and Saks Fifth Avenue, and selling on the train to the Hamptons and selling on the street and getting kicked off by the by the NYPD because I wasn't allowed to without a proper badge in hand. But so entrepreneurship was really kind of in my blood, and my parents are both entrepreneurs as well. So when Gwen and I originally had a couple different ideas. One was in fashion. We thought, okay, great idea. You can design. I'll be the model, and I'll sell. Well, that was a time when Scoop and Intermix and all of those contemporary fashion stores were coming out, and really at the height of that. But we thought, okay, that might not be the best idea. And then we had a makeup idea, and then so we had a lot of different ideas that we brought to the table. We, at the time, being at Chanel, I had a lot of customers that were asking me, oh, I want to buy this jacket, but I don't want to dry clean it because it's going to ruin the item. And I thought, that's strange, because that's the only reason why you're not purchasing the jacket. So we actually, with that in mind, I actually held a course amongst my team at Chanel on how to care for things, because we had a lot of customers asking. And at the time, there was nothing in the market. It was like Woolite, or there were some other things for really dedicated for bras and intimates, nothing that was fabric specific. So we thought, okay, we were hand washing cashmere with baby shampoo. There had to be a better thing, a better way. And having our textile background, we knew that it was in fact better to wash natural fabrics instead of running to the dry cleaner.
So how did you know that was the right idea?
Well,
After
I guess
having
you
gone
never
through
really
so
know.
many.
I guess you really never know that it
What
felt
made you
the
quit
most
your
organic.
What made you and Gwen finally decide
Yeah.
to quit your day jobs? Because you were doing this kind of nights, and she
So
kind of shared about the meeting between to
Yes.
share ideas. So what made you really finally commit?
So I jumped in first and started selling the product. So it was tough because a lot of people thought we were crazy. They said, "You're selling expensive, fancy laundry detergent. Why can't I just use whatever they sell in the grocery store?" And we thought, no. You know, this is going to eliminate dry cleaning. It's better for your things. And so it was a hard sell. It wasn't. The first 5 or 6 years were not easy. I mean, I was cold calling. I cold called everybody. I would wait until a store opened with my little bag of laundress products to say, just let me stand here and sell for the day, you know? So it wasn't that we knew that this was going to be a home run. We were just very passionate about the being able to take care of our own things. And that really that's ultimately what I think is important for everybody. We wanted it. And it felt right to us, whether or not we assumed other people would want it.
So it's interesting hearing your story as well as Gwen's earlier, right?
Yeah.
That you both were coming from the industry, hearing something similar that was a need,
Yes.
and that you also happen to know each other, right?
Exactly.
Because I wanted to ask you how that founding team relationship has worked, and how have you divided kind of the work? I mean, you guys have been together, you guys have been friends since college,
Yes.
but how did that translate into a business relationship and
Yeah.
co-running a business?
Yeah, so, and I know Gwen touched on this earlier about not having two designers or not having two of the same,
Right.
same responsibilities. I think that's really important when coming up with it. If you have a partner, is to identify what the strengths are. So my strengths were in sales and marketing at the time. I mean, obviously, running a business, you end up wearing every hat and doing everything from shipping to accounting to because it's two people and an intern for a very long time. And her strengths were in product development and design. So the two of us had, again, in the beginning, formulating the product and coming up with the formulation, coming up with the product naming, the labels. We did that together. But it ultimately, it helped that we're coming at it at two different angles.
Great. So she also mentioned that if you were to go back to your original business plan for the laundress, that a lot of the core elements were there. And we talked about this on our prep call about having the end in mind. So maybe take us through some of the elements of that, because we have a lot of founders in the room. So what are some of the things you have to think about? Because just to lay down, there's a backstory. I hear a lot of times entrepreneurs say, oh, well, I've been told I don't need a business plan. So it's been very interesting to hear several of the people today say they had a business plan and they've been really executing against that. So I really want you to dig into this, us to spend some time, because you've built a global brand.
Yeah. It's absolutely necessary to have a business plan. It doesn't have to look like a formal business plan, but you have to have your ideas down. You have to challenge yourself. You have to identify your customer. You have to have, and we spoke the other day about this, when you're thinking about scaling a business, if that's what you're thinking about doing, obviously, it is good to look at the end and end first. And what's your end goal? Always looking at your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan. Gwen and I always knew we always wanted to sell to a strategic. That was the road we wanted to take. We wanted to stay self-funded as much as we could, and we did. With some other very creative financing along the way. And so I think it's very important to identify, really, I mean, you don't have to have every answer to everything. I mean, that's not realistic. And things can change and should change because the economy, the market, the different demands that happen along. I mean, our business is 16 years old. We sold when we were 15 years old. So we're talking about a lot of changes that happened along the way, from consumer demands to love Instagram, but there was no Instagram. It was good old traditional PR with desk sides and pitching the product. And so it's, you have to be able to pivot and be flexible there. But I think it's really important to get your idea down, share it with others. We were really concerned about sharing it with others in the beginning because we were worried someone was going to steal our idea. And sorry, I'm a little hot. I think it's
okay.
I'm just gonna
take off your jacket.
I wore the cashmere sweater, my washable cashmere sweater. Probably not the best idea though. But yeah, I think and it challenges you to ask questions that you may not necessarily think about.
Yeah, so because there's a bunch of ideas, so let's unpack some of that. So you were talking about when you wanted to go to a strategic. So what are some of the things you tried to build in because you knew you wanted to sell to a strategic eventually? So let's talk about some of those things, just to give people examples.
Sure. So we started out really right out of the gate as a global brand, and that's kind of challenging when you're selling a consumer product good because there are many different regulations. This is even harder in beauty. So thank God thank God my detergency wasn't as challenging. But there are different, like the European regulations are very different from what the regulations are in Asia and then in the US. So that was something that we had to consider immediately when we were doing our labeling, when we were doing our formulations. But coming from Chanel and Gwen at Ralph Lauren, I was back and forth from Europe a lot. And actually, we traveled a lot to South America. So we were buying a lot of detergents and consumer product goods in the market. And that's really also how we were able to formulate what we have today, too, because we were looking to see what other people were doing and what was, different markets demand different things, from scents to the way the bottle looks and the packaging. And so we knew that was important to us. We didn't want to just be in the United States. That was obviously a big focus of ours because it was the market that we knew, and it's one of the biggest markets for detergents, and but we did a show at the New York Javits Center, the gift show, and that allowed, we had some international buyers that came by, and then that gave us so we secured our first client in Hong Kong. We also were introduced at that point to distributors, which I think, these gift shows are really, really good for that kind of exposure if you're selling a product. I know there's shows for tech, for everything. So I really believe that when you're starting out, it's a really good investment to make.
So getting close to your customer, those that are getting to your customer.
Exactly. And wanting to sell to a strategic, you want to see what that landscape looks like. And these shows are really good at that. And then also being able, as far as getting prepared for the end goal, is to really diversify yourself. So I always say we're like an octopus because we have our hands in many different things. So when the US wasn't doing that great, when boutiques were closing in 2008, 2009, we focused on other markets internationally. Or we would put more eggs in our basket for e-com when the stores weren't doing as well. So we were able to pivot and change quickly. And that's the amazing part of being an entrepreneur and being able to quickly be agile and have more control in that regard.
So you talked a lot about flexibility, but as you've been scaling, one of the presenters, Davia, talked about culture. And so how have you thought about culture as you've grown the business?
Culture meaning our clientele, or culture?
Culture meaning, within the company, on the
yeah.
company side.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I was thinking,
how did you,
culture.
So as you're building your team within the laundress,
yes.
how have you thought about culture? And also, I guess, how you think about it in the whole brand?
Yeah, so what's always been really important to me and to the brand is customer service. It was really important that we had that direct connection with our customers. From the very beginning, we launched something called Ask the Laundress, and Gwen and I were answering all of the questions. Now it's more automated. Thankfully, people were asking very similar questions, so we were able to create a library of questions. But that was really critical. I mean, a lot of our early adapters think that they know us personally, so it's really nice. We have people that just send in testimonials and say, "Oh my gosh, you've saved my christening gown. My grandmother's christening gown. It was yellow when I pulled it out," and just these incredible stories of people contacting us unsolicited, which is really cool. Before, we even had to do any kind of reviews or proper ratings. People were just reviewing us on their own. And so that kind of culture, really open, building a community with our customers and having that real authenticity and that voice is really important. And also that resonates really strongly within our team now of 27 women. We love men. We just happen to have a lot of women, but we welcome everyone. But we have it's great. I mean, I love our team. They hang out together. It really does look very similar to my team at Chanel, how we all worked really hard, but we all got along and did things socially. So we just implemented something for them, a wellness program, so they can do classes together, and then we do yoga. We're launching nutrition and these things that I think really it's about the community. So building internal community and then our customers as well.
So talk a little bit as now that you've scaled or even acquired, right? How are you finding that transition and then protecting the culture that you've built and the brand that you've built?
Well, luckily, Unilever really believes in keeping the DNA and that culture strong for us. So that's really why we chose them as our partner, because it was, when you have to give up your first child. I have 2 real children, but the laundress was my first. So it's tough. You want to make sure that no matter where you are involved in the company or not, that it's still continuing to be the way, we want it to be the next generation of detergents and be a brand that we feel really proud of forever. So the transition has been as seamless as it could possibly be. So we're really lucky we found a very good partner. I know that's not always the case. So, but that was something
how did you shush that out during the M&A? We heard it was a very long process, but how did you shush that out or make that happen?
We spoke to a lot of the brands that were already acquired by the different companies. We did a lot of due diligence. That's something that probably we got from being at Cornell. Like, just constantly like asking don't be afraid to ask them a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions and meet with as many people as possible. You never know what you're going to take away. And I think it was very clear after speaking to people that had already been through the process that this was the right partner for us.
So we talked a bit about this. This is one of the questions from the audience they sent in advance. How do you prioritize the hundreds of things that you must have going on? And I was thinking about this especially during an M&A process, which is its own 100 things. Yeah. So what advice would you give people on that?
Yeah, so early on prioritizing is a lot harder, I think, because you want to do everything all at the same time. So when you're starting out, I think you prioritize obviously based on how much money you have, but put that aside. So it's money in a bucket here, and then you create a list of what do I know best, or what's the most attainable, what's the most achievable in like the shortest period of time. I mean, I think it's really important that we prioritize press, PR. We were in the New York Times style section, which was a big coup for us because it really gave us credibility out of the gate as a New York brand. But I think whatever is the most important to you and to your brand, prioritize that first. And then during the acquisition time, it's all about your team. I mean, you have to have like a really strong. We have the third partner, I call her. She's been with our company for 13 years. I hope I'm saying that right. I feel like it's been forever, but having a really strong support system. It wasn't just Gwen and I ever. So it's the team that really, people that you trust and people that are really passionate or drinking the Kool-Aid. People that everybody that works for us does their own laundry. That's like. And if they don't, we train them. We send them home with a lot of laundress products. And
that's I
think that's the culture. I mean, you don't have to really love it. You have to love the product. But most everyone walks away being a big laundry lover.
I'm just thinking which question you could do. Oh, you keep mentioning funding. So you guys decided to self-fund. Was that by choice or by design or by default, I guess?
Yeah, no, that was by design. It got it was very challenging. That was probably, you asked about challenges, and I said I don't like to talk about challenges.
Well, we heard about the use of plastic.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, about the challenges with plastic?
Well, no, that you guys used a lot of credit card.
Oh, that kind of plastic. Oh, yeah. Well, we had good credit. So, I remember sitting on one of the fire escapes and talking and giving them all my information and then being like, okay, I'm going to give you, how about $20,000? I was like, yes, $20,000, I'll take it. And I thought I hit the jackpot. Now it wouldn't really get me very far, but we did a lot of, we call it creative financing. Further, I'd say maybe.
Saying by design. So why did you do that versus try to get investors?
We wanted to make our own decisions and control our own destiny. And we met with a lot of VCs, and it works for some people. It didn't work for us.
Taken.
I know. And listen, I think there are things that actually, having a board. We didn't have a board. And I think that's where I always am like, shoot, when I hear these other people talk about the benefits of that. We had a lot of advisors, but there was no formality there. And I think that we would have really benefited from that. And I know that comes with
taking
finance.
External money.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Should I answer your question?
I think so. So you wanted to control.
But no, but you
wanted to control your destiny, I think is the right way to say it.
We wanted to control our destiny. And also every time we looked at bringing on an external partner like that, we weren't going to get there we couldn't figure out a way to really spend the money, honestly. Or there was the money that people would give us wasn't going to get us there any faster. And so we thought, okay, we'll relook at this in a couple more years. And that's really what we did. We looked at every year we discussed that as a possibility. It wasn't as if we just kept trucking along and pretended it didn't exist. We really were diligent about evaluating that as a possible option. And then we got to the point really 15 years into it where we said, all right, we're going to have to take on an outside money from an investor, or it's time to go to market. And so.
And you did, and
we
you were
did.
very successful
Yes,
at that.
thank you.
Great. Lindsey, it's been great chatting with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.